Hi, I'm Tyler Fertel here, joined by MLS content creator Eli Lesser. Eli, thank you very, very much for joining me here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to, chat some MLS with you.
Yeah, and this will be a fun conversation. We have some stuff in common, such as play-by-play sports camps, which, if you've never heard of it, it's a really, really fun thing, and I bet both of us highly recommend it. And so I just really want to start off the interview by giving you a chance to talk about your MLS account, which is This Week in MLS. It is a growing account. It has been for years, and it is something that I follow, that I always look for MLS content. So just go ahead and really talk about how you started it. And yeah.
Yeah, so I actually started it because of play-by-play sports broadcasting camp. What happened is my first year, I went to the camp. I was a soccer guy, but it wasn't my main thing. My main thing was baseball at that time. And I walked into camp my first day wearing a Dodger hat and a gray hoodie. And I looked around the entire room and everyone else was wearing a Dodger hat and a gray hoodie. And at first I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. There's so many people like me. And then our first speaker came, and it was Shelly Smith of ESPN, which is really cool to meet her. And she, told us about, how competitive it is out there in the broadcast industry. And, you really want to make yourself different. And what I thought was amazing turned out to be scary for me when I saw everyone else wanted to be the next Vin Scully. I think that was, everyone at LA camp, that's who they want to be. And rightfully so. I mean, he's the GOAT. But it was just, I realized that I was the only person there that really knew about MLS. And I was like, you know what? Next year, I'm going to come back and I'm going to be the MLS guy. Like, MLS is going to be my thing. I'm a big NBA guy. I'm a big MLB. I was an MLS guy, but not as big yet. But I was like, I'm going to be the MLS guy. And there was a podcast group that was started at LA camp called National Sports Radio. And I created an MLS podcast for them. And I created This Week in MLS as an account to promote that podcast. And then it turned into everything else. But yeah, it actually started as just an account to promote a podcast. And then it became, what it is today for me.
Mm-hmm. That's a really, really cool starting story. I mean, very kind of everything involved with one another, and it's kind of all blossomed for you as the years have gone on. And I'm just interested, before that point where you really kind of decided, oh, MLS is going to be my thing, why did you really find an interest in MLS over European soccer? Was it just because it's local, or did you just think it was cooler because it's newer? I mean, how did that work for you?
100% because it's local. I'm a big fan of LA sports teams and whatnot. And, for me, I didn't know about soccer until Beckham came to the Galaxy. I didn't know what it was. I was late to playing it. I was playing baseball as a kid, not necessarily soccer. And I really fell in love with the game during, the Robbie Keane era of the Galaxy. That was what really drew me to it. And yeah, the fact that, I could go to the matches. I've always had a hard time finding a connection to a team, in Europe. It's been hard for me to develop any sort of connection. And yes, I agree that the quality is probably much, much better there. But it's just the fact that you could go to these matches, it feels like, you're actually a part of it. But I haven't really had the same type of experience with any club outside of, America. And yeah, I want to see the game grow here in America. And, I love going to Galaxy matches. That's the team I've followed throughout these years. If they didn't exist, I wouldn't even be a soccer fan. So, I want people to see that and see, that the American game does have passion and have, strong fans.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned a word there very quickly, and it's a big word when you talk about American soccer. It's growth. I mean, even if you're talking about the American national team, or if you're talking about the MLS, what has happened since the time that you've created This Week in MLS, it's all been growth. So really, what have you seen from the MLS that has really made you kind of become more absorbed in it and really stay involved with it over the years?
Yeah, first of all, I think the big thing is the potential. That's the one thing that's definitely kept me in. And I saw it then when I started This Week in MLS in 2015, and I'm even seeing it way more now. And it was just that belief that, MLS, I've always been more focused on MLS finding its place in American sports more than in, world football, which might be different than a lot of people who are huge, European football fans. But, I'm more focused on getting MLS its place in the American game. And I just feel like, baseball isn't quite what it used to be, at least, to me, as it was as a kid. I think MLS can pass the NHL. If MLS can, establish itself as like a top 3 American sports league, that would be absolutely ridiculous. And it's something that I want to strive for. And, I felt like this was my way to get as established as possible. And, I'm hoping that as the league grows, I continue to grow with it and, have my platform raised from there. And I guess it was crazy for me to see that as a 14-year-old. Mm-hmm. And now, as a 23-year-old, it's, exciting to see where the game is heading. Still so much work to do. But, I think we're in a big period right now, and probably the most important time in American soccer history, just these next 3-4 years. So I'm just so happy to be a part of this and, hoping that, come 2026, everyone can see me on the field or something with, all the greatness that's about to happen here.
I mean, yeah, you talked about it. I mean, right now, I feel like the period kind of started, you could maybe say it started 1 or 2 years ago, but obviously with Lionel Messi coming over, it's like, okay, MLS, it's going to start building. It's going to start growing. That's clear. And then, like you just said, 2026 World Cup out here in North America, that might be the culmination of that growth. And so you also indicated this a little bit, but you have access to the MLS because it is one of the big leagues, but it's the media attention to it isn't on to the level of like the NBA or the NFL or even the MLB, even though it might get there hopefully someday. So really having that type of access to the games and really being able to travel everywhere and meet players and everything, has that been your favorite part about being an MLS creator? Or is it just what type of experiences have you really treasured during your time so far?
Definitely kind of the things you just mentioned. It's crazy this summer how I've gone to 3 different MLS cities that didn't even exist when I started This Week in MLS. I got to visit Cincinnati, Nashville, and St. Louis. If you told me 8 years ago that I'd be visiting those places for an MLS match, I wouldn't believe you. It's just crazy to see how fast the league is growing and how passionate those fans are from the jump. So that's my favorite thing in the world is meeting other MLS fans. And the player thing is also very nice. And I think one thing that stuck out to me about MLS compared to other American leagues is how accessible MLS players feel. They're a lot easier to reach, for better, for worse in some cases, but they're a lot easier to reach than, an NBA player. When you think of NBA players, they're on such like high pedestals, really, deservedly so. But, it's just, it's impossible. And then, with like the content creation thing, a big thing for me is just like, as much, I love the NBA as much as I love MLS actually, but there's like 1,000 people doing what I do for MLS for the NBA. It's hard for me it'd be very hard for me to be original and to kind of get my path there. So that was a huge thing that like drew me to doing MLS stuff, because I don't think there is anyone doing what I'm doing right now, which is really cool. I think probably there'll be a lot more with everything going on with Messi. But that's definitely my favorite thing is, kind of creating my own path and meeting all the people around the country who, follow the league. And then, it's very nice to know that people appreciate what you're doing, and that you have a voice.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about the MLS that is very interesting to not only American soccer fans, but really like around the world, it's interesting because it's different. I mean, it's an Americanized version of soccer. I mean, it has a salary cap, it has the draft. The draft might not be as important because of the academies and because of transfers from everywhere, but still, I mean, it's an American sports league. And so how do you think that MLS going forward will embrace that more and more to really kind of make it stand out? Because like you said, it's not on the level of European soccer yet, and who knows if it will ever be, just because it's a different type of league, but it can still gain popularity at a rapid rate. I mean, it already is.
Yeah. So I am unlike most soccer fans or world football fans, I love the way MLS runs itself because it's a league of parity. When you watch, let's say, the Bundesliga, who's going to win every single year, and it's dumb. No one wants to watch that. As high quality as it is, no one wants to see Bayern win every year, but MLS is set up to give every team an equal shot at winning. Obviously, teams are smarter or may have some other resources that are bigger or more of a draw to their city. But, I love how anyone could win any year in MLS. It's not that predictable. So I'm a big proponent of like the parity, and I do like the roster rules. However, I think, one thing we've seen with MLS is as the league grows, the cap gets bigger, the roster rules get less strict. And I think, we're about to see some big changes next year that I'm already aware about. But it's just continuing to loosen those. I think having the roster rules is still good. But loosening the roster rules will allow for MLS clubs to compete better against like Mexican teams. Hopefully we'll be in the Copa Libertadores and play, a Boca or something like that. I think, just loosening those rules, allowing teams more flexibility in how they can build their rosters will help, the league as a whole grow and compete against other leagues. Because I want to establish MLS as the best league in the Americas first. And, I think that will help that. But I'm not one to say that we should get rid of it and let it be free flowing, because then you'll see, Inter Miami and LAFC win every single year. And that's not fun. We've had like 9 different champions in the last, 15 years. So that's, amazing. You don't get that even in the NBA. So
would a loosening of the rules, but still kind of keeping them existing, would that mean like more designated player spots? I mean, because right now it's 3, right? So each team can really take like 3 top tier international players or prospects to be like their 3 big guys. But with the MLS continuously growing now and really getting more internationally kind of proven, it's kind of grown like that.
Yeah, so I guess this is breaking news or something, but one thing that I've heard of is they're planning on adding a 4th DP spot next year, plus raising the salary cap by 30%, which is a pretty big increase to go from one year to another. So I think that will already allow stuff. Maybe they'll add more international spots too. But that's what I'm hearing so far. And just like little things like that could make a huge difference, especially, MLS teams are very attack heavy, very top heavy. And, you always see the videos about MLS defenses getting exposed and stuff like that. But adding another DP spot allows teams to, figure out maybe a different way to use that spot that they wouldn't have normally done. So maybe we'll see more, designated player center backs or goalkeepers. There's a couple, but, have that be more of a consistent thing instead of just your striker, your 10 and your winger being DPs. Adding a 4th or 5th could allow you to get, a great center back, a great goalkeeper, something like that.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to use this phrase or make this a big thing, but do you think this is like the Messi effect? I mean, this kind of thing happening where do you think it fully is?
I mean, when David Beckham came into the league, that's why they created the designated player in the first place. The league is always willing to change and adapt. And the one thing with the league and why I really drive like, hey, if you're an American soccer fan and you want to get into MLS, you need to actually give it your money in a way, because, go to games, buy the merch, because the more money the league makes, the better the league can get. That's how the league works as a single entity. So if you want to see MLS succeed, don't just sit by and relax and critique it and tell it why it should be better. Actually go and help it so it can get better. And, I think, the attention that Messi's bringing to MLS right now is going to be massive for the league, whether, it's fair or not that Miami could have him, and they're probably going to steamroll through MLS. It's I think of the long-term effect of it more than the short-term. And I'm extremely excited for like how Messi can grow the league. And talking about these roster designations that I mentioned that they'll add next year, those weren't going to be a thing until Messi arrived. But because Messi is here, they realized that, hey, we need to make the competition around Messi better so that, it isn't such a steamroll for Miami. And I think that's kind of what the aim is for next year. And, it will help Miami, of course, but also the rest of the league, which is very important. And as a Galaxy fan, we need a lot of help right now. So I'm very happy.
It seems like it's Ricky Puig versus the world right now. I mean, I'm an LAFC fan. You've had our number in the past couple of games. I'm not going to lie, but I mean, it's been a tough season for the Galaxy for sure.
Yeah.
And I want to talk a little bit more about Messi here, because I mean, why not, right? I mean, it's the greatest player of all time coming to the United States. And so you kind of indicated that there are pros to Messi's coming here and there are cons to Messi coming here. And I want to hear what you have to say. Like, does one really kind of outweigh the other, or is Messi just, he's here and he'll do different things for the league, good and bad, and we'll live with that?
I'm just going to say objectively, Messi being in MLS is a great thing. And there are cons to it. So I guess that doesn't make it objectively. But, having the greatest player of all time play in your league is absolutely an amazing thing. It's going to bring attention. Little things like the Apple TV subscribers doubling since Messi arrived. That's important for the rest of the league, whether, fans of other teams want to admit that or not. That's the type of stuff that benefits everyone. And that's what you're going to see. Every Messi game is sold out to the brim. Our team's promoting it very annoyingly. Yes. And I know a lot of home fans of the teams that Messi plays against are very pissed off about it. And that's very understandable. And I don't want to discredit them or, invalidate their feelings. But, having the GOAT play in your league can only ever be a good thing. My only complaint is, it will get annoying to watch Miami win every match if that's where we're heading, because that's kind of what we saw at the Leagues Cup, even though a couple of those were, penalty shootouts, so there would have been draws. But you know what I mean? It wouldn't be fun to see Miami win every single match, because that takes away what the beauty of MLS, which is the parity of it. So I understand those cons, but just think, as we mentioned with the roster designations, thinking about the long-term success of this can be huge. And, David Beckham coming to the Galaxy is the reason why I became an MLS fan. I'm sure there's going to be tons of people who become MLS fans because of Messi playing in MLS. And, having Messi speak on behalf of the league alone is just humongous. So those are kind of my thoughts on the Messi situation. And as a content creator, it's helped me out a lot. I've gained like 7,000 followers on Instagram just because of Messi coming. And, every time I post a Messi highlight, it goes crazy. But that's a selfish reason, but also, I'm hoping that it lifts everyone up who's been working in the league.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you talked about it a little bit there, but the Leagues Cup just finished. They beat Nashville in a penalty shootout. That was, by the way, one of the most unbelievable games. Second half, and I mean, that was craziness. But they went undefeated in the Leagues Cup. Obviously, Sergio Busquets and Alba kind of joined them there into the tournament. And in the MLS right now, they're the worst. Statistically, they're the worst team in the league. I mean, in the Leagues Cup, you could basically say they were the worst team in the tournament. And then they added these 3 Barcelona guys, and they're like, oh, we're just going to win everything. So now, do you think that Inter Miami is the favorite to win the title? I mean, it's going to be an uphill battle for them to even make the playoffs. I don't even know if they can lose. But would you say, I think Inter Miami is going to win the MLS Cup?
I'm going to be that MLS shill and say no. I'm going to say that, the teams that have been doing it consistently all season will be the favorites, like an FC Cincinnati or Columbus. I'm going to hold on to that hope that it could happen, because I kind of don't want to see Messi win. As great as he is, and as much as I love him, because I do think I've always been a Messi over Ronaldo guy. It's just I think it'll be kind of fun to see him not win. And I think that proves a point to the rest of the world. Hey, Messi's here, but he couldn't win MLS Cup. Now, I do think, regardless, they're the favorite next year. But I kind of hope that they don't win this year, because, he did just come in the middle of the season. I know that's how it works in soccer. But, I kind of want to see a team that's been doing it all year make it all the way to the end, and preferably a team that, hasn't really won it before, because that would be really cool. And then Messi will win next year. I'm convinced it'll be Miami, LAFC next year, regardless of who they have on the roster. And I'm annoyed because I predicted my prediction for this season. So sad. Because I picked the other worst team to make it to MLS Cup, Toronto, and that's been a absolute, cluster F over there. But heading into the season, it seemed like a great option. So it proves that stars can't just come into MLS and be the best in the league, but Messi's just built different. So I guess to answer your question, I think they can win MLS Cup, and it's probably a high possibility, but I also just don't want to say it. So I'm going to let another team win in my mind.
And kind of adding on to that, you said next year they'll be the favorite. I mean, they will be. It's the new season. Yes. They have all those guys. But do you think, no matter if they win or not this year, do you think that we'll see other world-class players coming over to the MLS to kind of challenge Messi, maybe not joining Inter Miami to play with him, but maybe joining the other bigger teams, like big market teams, such as a player like I saw rumors about potentially French international Antoine Griezmann coming over soon. I mean, like big, massive players like that joining the league in the coming future. Do you think that is a major possibility?
It's definitely a major possibility. I'm furious that the Saudi League is a thing, because I think if that wasn't an option right now, we'd see more players like a Messi, or there's no one like Messi, but like a Griezmann come to MLS, because I think that's kind of who we're competing with right now to sign these big names. They have the money, we have the lifestyle. So I'm really hoping that, we could draw more players. Griezmann's 100% going to be in MLS next season, whether it's in the middle or at the start or in the summer. And, you're going to want to hear this, but I'm like 99 convinced he'll be an LAFC player.
That'd be wonderful.
There's really as much as I'd love to say oh, he's going to the Galaxy. It's just, he's like best buds with Carlos Vela. Whether Vela's going to be there next year, the amount that Vela's talked to him about LAFC probably, and he loves LA, he'll be an LAFC player. Cool. I'm hoping, Galaxy could get, Mbappe. No, I mean, that's not going to happen. But, I'm frustrated that Neymar went to the Saudi League, because I really felt like he could have been the next one to come to MLS. And maybe he does after the Saudi League. I mean, I think he's only there for
2 years. Yeah.
2 years. Yeah. Maybe he could get out of that. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't if I was getting that money, but you know what I mean? I definitely think MLS will attract more stars. And I think that's the biggest part about Messi coming to the league as well. It's not just attracting the eyeballs to watch him, but also attracting the other players that could come to the league. And to keep up the parity, I'm not going to lie, I would love it if MLS didn't allow those big players to go join Miami. I would love for them to be kind of allocated, which is something MLS does. But give them the right to choose, just not Miami. Because I think, having other competitors around the league for him would be super, super fun. And, as much as I hope the Galaxy get one of those guys, they definitely think both LA teams will have the opportunity to get a big player like that. And I think you guys could even get Chucky Lozano, who's the biggest Mexican player, as the heir to Vela's throne. But yeah, I've been keeping up with Twitter notifications. I mean, all the rumors about the new number 9 for LAFC after Rongo left, and it's Lozano, and we ended up getting this guy recently, but in his first game we lost to Monterrey. That was a little bit frustrating. That was a crazy match. But yeah, that was a crazy match. Were you there or no?
No, I wasn't there. I was very close to going out to the Rose Bowl for that, but I ended up not doing it.
Rose Bowl was very hard to be at. I was at the July 4th, which was amazing, but hard to exit the stadium and stuff. So I understand not making that one, but yeah.
And other than Griezmann and hopefully somehow a Neymar after he gets out of Saudi Arabia, are there any other names you think that soccer fans should maybe keep an eye on that you've heard a little buzz around, and Lozano as well, that you think that could potentially come to MLS over the next year?
Yeah, I don't know about the next year. However, I am in the minority where I believe Christian Pulisic will come to MLS after the World Cup, right after, which might be early for him, which a lot of people would hate that because he'll be 27. But I think him coming to MLS right after the World Cup, while he's in the prime of his career, would be a huge statement for the league. And he's someone that if I'm an MLS team, I'm throwing anything possible to bring him in just to have the best American star. It's kind of like what happened with, Clint Dempsey and Michael Bradley and Jermaine Jones. They all kind of came to MLS at the same time. And I'm hoping that, we could get Pulisic, McKennie, Adams, all to come back home. Which would be great. One player that I don't think there's no rumors about this yet, but one player I think MLS needs to get next as a Messi level guy is Robert Lewandowski. Especially because, first of all, I would love for him to go to a place like Chicago that has a huge Polish population. And also they're a team that really needs a lifting, especially being in such a big market. It's a shame that they don't get a draw. So I think, having Lewandowski there would be huge for the league. I think he has a similar personality type to Messi, which I think, MLS kind of wants the nice boys, the real ones. No offense to Neymar, but he's fake for what he did. Even though take the bag, but it's the lesser ego guys. I think, Lewandowski is my ideal target for MLS. I'm trying to think of more off the top of my head.
Mhm.
I would love a Harry Kane to come or something, but I doubt he comes to America.
Mhm.
I would love KDB. I don't think he would ever come to America, but if
I mean, he would,
KDB,
even if he's 40 years old, he'd dominate. I mean, this guy,
yeah.
yeah.
I think I feel like when he's ready to like slow down, I think he'll probably just like play in Belgium or something. Mo Salah would be great. Even though I think there's a higher chance he goes to the Saudi league.
Mhm. There's already rumors about that happening, I think, as well.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. He's Middle Eastern. It just makes sense. Modric, I don't care how old he is. Like, just bring him to MLS.
Mhm.
Who else is out there? Son. I would love Son.
Yeah.
I don't think he's coming MLS, but I would absolutely love to have a player like him here. Just I like the very likable guys, and I think a lot of like the players MLS clubs would go after are like less of the, like I mentioned, less of the ego guys and more of the like sons. And the Messis, the guys who are just they really have the drive for the game and not the outside factors.
Mhm.
So not a Paul Pogba, but yeah.
And we're talking kind of going back to that theme. I mean, that we've basically been talking about the whole time is growth. I mean, we're talking about growth within the league, growth within the skill talent pool in the MLS in terms of players. But is there a point where you think that the MLS, I mean, right now, I don't know how much it's being considered, but is there a point where the MLS will heavily consider adding promotion and relegation?
As much as I would love to live in an ideal world, I don't think promotion relegation is going to happen in MLS unless they keep expanding to, maybe 40 teams and they could have an upper and lower division. However, it'd still be a closed system because no one would, if they made an MLS 1 and MLS 2, there wouldn't be anywhere from MLS 2 to relegate to. Yeah. I don't see the leagues working together, the current leagues, just the way they are. They very much hate each other. MLS and USL don't get along, certain things like that. And also it's tough when you're in a single entity league and you have, these roster rules and stuff. I mean, it's unfair to have promotion relegation when every team is supposed to be at the same level. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I don't think that is possible. And it's hard to tell an owner who's been in MLS for like 30 years and tell them, hey, you didn't make the playoffs last year. You got to be relegated to this league and lose a bunch of money. Because it is always sports as a business, I guess like I mentioned earlier, I'm more focused on MLS establishing itself as a top American sports league rather than World Football League. So I guess I as much as I'd love promotion relegation, I don't think it's even the most necessary thing to grow the game, as much as people want to tell you that it's the reason why MLS isn't the best league in the world. Because there's a huge contingent of US soccer fans that believe MLS is the devil and that because they don't have promotion relegation, it can never be a top league, which I just think is cap. I mean, MLS is growing. It's still relatively new compared to all these leagues that have had hundreds of years of history. Mm-hmm. So, I want to see MLS establish itself as an NBA, NFL more than I want to see it be a Premier League or Bundesliga.
Mm-hmm. And I think that going back to what you're talking about parity, I mean, I think that promotion or relegation would potentially get rid of some of that parity because if 100%. The bottom, 3 to 5 teams that are moving up and down within the two leagues, I mean, it would I feel like it would create those group of teams that are consistently in that conversation, right?
Exactly. And in my head, I have a big 6 in MLS, but we don't want an actual big 6 in MLS where we see these teams be the top 6 every single year. That's boring. And the only reason why that's the reason why I've had trouble connecting with a team in the Premier League, because I wanted to be a non-Big 6 fan, but then it's like,
what are you rooting for?
What ambition is there? I'm not from this city. I get the people who root for, support like a Burnley who are from Burnley, that makes sense because you get to go a few blocks and you're at the stadium watching your team play. But as like an American, I don't know how you could, willingly choose a non-Big 6 team. Because I tried to be a Newcastle fan for a very long time, and I guess they're now going to be a Big 6 team. But I jumped off that bandwagon, which was dumb of me before they got bought and stuff. But it's just why, and it's funny because a lot of Europeans and a lot of Euro snobs that I like to call them, which are American soccer fans that hate MLS, is they always think like MLS is content with being mediocre, but I'm like, you support a team that finished 14th in the Premier League, and they're going to be 14th in the Premier League every year. And that's content with being mediocre. In MLS, we're trying to, win every year. Anyone could win any year. It could be our year any year. I don't know. I've just had a hard time connecting with the idea of, supporting a team that isn't one of the best teams in the league in another league. But for me, I'm a Galaxy fan through and through because they're my local team. I started This Week in MLS before LAFC existed, so I was not going to switch, nor would I. But it's just like, when we're going through bad years, it is what it is because that's my team. That's my city's team. I'm not going to jump to the team that's like winning all the titles, which was like Seattle for a while. But like in the Premier League, it's a concept I have a hard time with as an American, I guess. And, I know like this is a take that would, get absolutely blasted by Premier League fans, but it's just why I've had a hard time being, a Prem fan. I get it's the best league in the world. It has the highest quality, but, it's hard when I know City's going to win this year,
And I feel like your commitment to the MLS is unmatched. I mean, you clearly not only as a content creator, you're also a fan. You're also just a promoter of the league. You love the MLS, or you love MLS, not the MLS. I think that's a clarification that needs to be talked about more amongst fans in America. But I think you're really involved with MLS. And what's the overarching goal for your career? Do you want to continue kind of having this journalistic role and really being a promoter for the league, or would you prefer to maybe get involved with the actual league?
Yeah, well, I definitely want to I want to be paid by the league. That's for sure. I feel like I'm doing their marketing for them. And I feel like I've been doing that for 8 years. So I'm hoping to get paid by the league. I want to work within the league. Ideally, I could be at Apple TV as part of the season package in some form. My ultimate goal would be to host some sort of like MLS variety show, where it's not just like a basic talk show, but, have a bunch of stuff, sketches and whatnot. But, about MLS, for MLS. But, if I'm at a very weird point now where I've graduated college, so it's getting real, At first, this was just, my hobby, my passion and whatnot. But now it's like, I need to make this my full-time job. And it's definitely difficult, even with, having 8 years of experience. It's never a guarantee that you're going to succeed. So, I have to stay consistent with everything, but, I'm thinking about distancing myself from the league as well, where I'm still, Eli Lesser covering MLS, but who knows? I've already been thinking about dropping the name This Week in MLS and just being Eli Lesser and talking about the league still, but it feels weird as I've graduated college and to not be paid by MLS, but to have MLS be my name and be so tied down to it when they're not paying me to do it. So, if I could get them to pay me to do stuff, that'd be great. My ideal role for next year would be like a social media host for them, because I feel like that's kind of up my alley. But it's definitely tough now that I've graduated college, where it's like, I don't want to have, a normal job. I don't want to work at a store or anything. I want to make sure that this is what I can do. I don't want to work at a desk my whole life unless it's a TV desk. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. But, it's very much for the rest of the year. I'm going to write it out as is what I'm doing. I'm heading to Orlando this week, which will be super cool. But, write it out as is and then see what I can start cooking for next year. And, I think next year will be a big year for me, whether it's, a positive or a negative. I think next year could kind of be a determining factor of where I'm heading. But, the goal would be to be on the field during 2026, working it on camera and not, just as a fan. I'll be there regardless. I'll be there as a fan or as a creator. But, I think that's kind of just what everyone is working towards right now in the American soccer world is, how can, I be on the field at the World Cup? How can I be on the field at the World Cup? That's just, everyone's mindset, and it's very competitive, and it sucks that MLS doesn't want to hire a kid straight out of college. I understand it, but this guy, like, come on, help me out. But, I have to be patient whether I want to or not, but I, really want this to work out and make, being an MLS guy my full-time job, which currently it is, even though I'm living at home still for the remainder of the year, at least. It'll be difficult, but my ultimate goal would be, to cover the league full time and make a decent amount doing it. So getting as high up as possible, like a Taylor Twellman. I know he was a former player, but personality wise and money wise, he's killing it for MLS. So that's kind of the level I want to be at, in the next 5 years or so.
Mm-hmm. And you are quite literally already an ambassador for MLS through Body Armor, which I think is something very, very interesting because, like you said, you're not working for the league. You're not you're somewhat affiliated with the league through This Week in MLS, but you're not working for them. And so I think it's very, very cool that you're kind of almost like sponsoring them in a way, promoting them like that. I'm really wondering, how did you kind of get that relationship with Body Armor, and what has it been like to work as an ambassador for them?
Yeah, so I'm very thankful actually that Body Armor found me before, I found them. And, actually, ironically, they like me and they wanted me because I'm not affiliated with the league, so I can be the voice. They view me as the voice of the fans, which is great. I love being the voice of the fans. But they actually specifically chose me because I'm not paid by the league or anything. So I could follow my own rules and not, the league's rules, which is, something that would have to happen. I make a lot of videos critiquing things and, complaining about people complaining, as people say. And, that's the type of thing I wouldn't be able to do if I worked with the league. And Body Armor loves that part about what I do is, I'm honest sometimes. I love the league so much, but I'm also, not, I'm willing to, say something if I don't think something's right. And, they love that I've connected with fans across the country. And that's a big part of why they're sending me to all these places, because they know I have followers here, I have followers there, stuff like that. But yeah, so working with Body Armor has been amazing because before them, I had only been to 3 MLS stadiums.
Wow.
And now I've been to, this will be my 16th.
Wow.
And in just like 2 years, I've been able to travel to all these American cities I've never even been to before, specifically for MLS. I've never been to St. Louis. I've never been to Cincinnati. And had it not been for Body Armor or MLS stuff, I just would have never gone to these cities in general. Like, take away MLS from it, I wouldn't visit these cities. So it's great to meet different types of people across the country and people who are passionate about it. And then, definitely Body Armor is, keeping me afloat right now. If I didn't have this sort of Body Armor deal, I would definitely be working at a store or something to make some sort of money. So, the Body Armor money is great for someone who, money wise, it was great for me who didn't have to pay rent or anything in college. So it's great money for college. And then also just, it's great money for someone who isn't paying rent currently, which is my current situation. But, I can't do this forever. So I'm not going to live in my parents' house for the rest of my life. So, it's definitely, how can I take that next step forward and that next leap forward?
And you talked about it, St. Louis, Cincinnati already, Orlando this week, 16 stadiums. That's a lot of stadiums. Do you have a favorite one? No bias, no Dignity Health, no Dignity.
I was going to say bias. Dignity. Yeah. So I was going to say bias, obviously the Galaxy Stadium, just because that's home, that's home. I got to say, and it may be recency biased, but I was most impressed by the St. Louis Stadium. What they created there was just absolutely fantastic. And I think a big reason why it was so good is because I spoke with like their fan guy or like their experience guy. And he told me and showed me, because I told him what stadiums I'd been to before. He was like, well, we drew this part, the inspiration from this one that you went to. We drew inspiration at this part from this stadium. The whole underground club level of St. Louis, they actually, they kind of took that idea from when they visited LAFC Stadium. So they're trying to take the best, or they tried to take the best of all these newer stadiums and combine it into their stadium. So I guess objectively that would make St. Louis the best stadium. I really enjoyed Nashville's, aside from the exiting of the stadium was very, very rough. Probably one of the worst experiences, but the stadium as a whole was great. Trying to think of a more classic stadium. So do you like like the football stadiums or the MLB stadiums that are kind of being used by MLS teams? No. Oh my God. I went to an NYCFC match. It was awful. I hated seeing a match at Yankee Stadium. It felt like it took MLS like back a few years.
Really?
Just like, I don't like the football stadiums either. I saw Chicago. I like it if they could fill it, if they're allowed to fill it. Like I was at Charlotte for their first home match ever. And it happened to be against the Galaxy. I was sent there not because of the Galaxy, but, it was amazing seeing that stadium filled at 75,000, but they don't open it up to 75,000 every week. Mm-hmm. I love soccer specific stadiums. I think that's kind of what I want to say. It feels like the teams actually belong there, mm-hmm. rather than them being guests. Because when I went to a Chicago Fire match at Soldier Field, it felt like they were a guest. When I saw NYCFC at Yankee Stadium, it definitely felt like they were a guest. The stadium's freaking named for the MLB team. It's not NYCFC Stadium, So, the more soccer specific stadiums that come into the league, the better, and the less turf fields, the better as well. But, like things with like NYCFC, I know this is a bold take, but I think the second their stadium opens, their soccer specific ones, they'll be a super club in MLS like Inter Miami's becoming. I think they'll be like the top destination, but I think that, playing in that baseball stadium is holding them back tremendously. And I think they were rumored to be after Neymar. And I think if their stadium was already ready, they would have gotten Neymar.
Wow. So a lot of things to talk about for the future with the MLS. I mean, it's like we've been talking about, it's going to continue growing. 2026 World Cup will only help. So, Eli, it's been great to talk to you today. I appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely be in touch.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Tyler's Takes from start to finish. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my podcast on YouTube or whatever platform you are on right now, and share it with your friends. I would love to hear from you, so please feel free to leave a review, give me feedback in the comment section, or send me a message on social media. If you'd like to hear more about my podcast or me, you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok as well. See you next time.